All right, who's feeling mean? No, I know you look mean, but are you feeling mean? Leigh Richardson is a counselor. She works with people all the time. She tries to get us straight. We're angry. We've been angry. I don't know if we're getting any less angry. We've gotten a lot better at expressing ourselves. You know what, Leigh Richardson? That's the thing that surprises me. I always thought the reason why we got kind of mean and introspective and angry is that we weren't very good at expressing our feelings. Now we seem to have got maybe a little too good at expressing our feelings.
We certainly have. And, I think that we're expressing them without thought. It's impulsive behavior. We're just acting out with absolutely no thought of the consequence.
Is that the social media component? I mean, I hate that we always talk about social media and we always seem to want to blame social media. But when you are, typing in or texting in some sort of response to something somebody has written and you can't see their face and you can't see the reaction, you really, a lot of people just can't empathize. They can't imagine what their words mean to the other person, or maybe they just can't imagine the interpretation that other person might give their words.
Well, and I think what social media does is it leaves us waiting for that instant gratification. I just have to respond. I just have to do something. And I think that's kind of what's teamed our brain up to say, okay, here's your chance. You better act out.
Okay, so social media has kind of trained us to do that, but how is it manifesting itself in other parts of our lives?
Well, I think that we see things in McDonald's, we see things on airplanes. I mean, the road rage that we've experienced in Dallas in the last couple of months it's been very eye-opening to me. I think it has been happening, but there's more of it and we're more aware of it because we share it on social media. But I think, there's 4 things that put the brain into a dysregulated state. And 2 of them are emotional trauma and stress. And the last 18 to 20 months have certainly impacted us all on some level with emotional trauma. We've lost our normal. We lost our sense of community. You can't go to church. You can't go to school. We've been stressed out. We're still stuck in that fear. We're uncertain. I mean, is the pandemic just become an endemic? And is it just going to go on forever? And so all of that really impacts the way that our brain works.
How long did it take us to get into this state? Was it almost instantaneous, or did it take a period of time before you really started to notice this sort of knee-jerk reaction we all have? Were we like into the pandemic? Were we like 3 months in, 6 months in, a year in? When did you really start to notice the change?
Well, I think it all depends on where you were personally when it started. Because I've seen, in my practice, I've seen it, some people 1 month into it, they could not deal with it. But they were suffering from anxiety or depression before the pandemic. So it was just that extra level of stress. For a lot of people that I haven't seen in years, they've come back in the last 18 months because they're just having a hard time dealing with it. So I think it really depends on where you were when it started, what level of support that you have in your life, how much was your life changed, and what you're genetically dealt. So what's your resilience to start with?
Well, that's a great point, especially for younger people, because you and I have talked about this before. I don't think our young people have the same level of resilience that older generations have had. I don't think they've been allowed to fail very often. I don't think they've been picked up, dusted off, and say, okay, go back in there and try again. It's just kind of like we wrapped our kids up in bubble wrap, and we've been doing that for a couple of generations now. And this might be part of the offshoot of not allowing people to learn how to cope with things like stress.
And I think, we all have to. We're all going to experience it on some level. And if you get some practice, it's going to be a lot harder. When you throw me in, coach, well, throw me in after I've had a couple practice games. Don't just throw me in without anything.
Here's what I'm wondering, too. Where does it manifest itself the most? Is it in our personal relationships? Is it in our work relationships?
Well, I think where's your frustration? It manifests where your personal frustration is. If you're more frustrated with your relationship with your partner, it's going to come out there. If you hate your job and you've been dreading going for the last year, it's going to come out there. So where's your vulnerability?
Okay, so I'm sure we have people who are listening right now because it's on the drive home, and I'm sure we have people listening who maybe recognize a little bit of this behavior in themselves. What are some of the things you talk to your clients about as far as, I don't know if it's self-soothing techniques or ways to kind of catch yourself misbehaving or behaving inappropriately? What do you advise your clientele about what to do and how to recognize maybe some of the inappropriate things they're doing?
Well, I advise my clients to check in with themselves on a regular basis. How you doing, Leigh? You're getting that knot in your stomach. Do you feel some anxiety coming on? Okay, you do. Stop and just breathe. It's just as simple as breathe into it. If you slow your breath rate down, you'll slow your heart rate down. If you can get those two to dance together, you're creating heart rate variability. That makes you feel good. It makes you, it's a feeling of wellness. So check in with yourself and don't let yourself get to that danger point. You know, when you feel it coming on, and most people with anxiety or depression or pain, you'll feel it somewhere in your body. You just got to tap into that self-awareness. And when you feel it coming on, stop it. Stop and just breathe into it.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. My wife is prone to getting, Elizabeth is prone to getting panic attacks. And we're out driving yesterday. It's on a Sunday afternoon, right? And we're not doing anything important, and we're not in a rush to get anywhere. And she's just sitting there in a passenger seat, and I'm driving. And all of a sudden I hear this breathing technique going on, and I look at her, and I can tell when she's having a panic attack because she kind of gets that look on her face, and she gets in the zone. Do we know anything about what brings these things on? Because you would think a stressful situation would bring on a panic attack, not a Sunday drive.
But you know, it's what happens is the brain is the central nervous system. You've got the autonomic nervous system that controls the body, and that there's two pieces. There's a sympathetic and a parasympathetic. And when the sympathetic takes over, that's when you get in that fight or flight mode, and that's when that panic attack comes on. And when the parasympathetic takes over, you freeze. And honestly, that window of tolerance isn't very big. It doesn't take a whole lot to throw that autonomic nervous system out of balance. And when that happens, that's when that panic starts. Or, you know, if the parasympathetic takes over, that's when you just get numb. You just want to get in that fetal position and lay on the floor. And it doesn't take a certain thing to trigger that.
I guess, too, if you have the right techniques, right, it doesn't take all that much to get yourself out of that mode, too.
Well, not if you practice, but you need to practice before you get into that state where you need it. And I can't tell you how many people I'll work with them on their breathing and just say, just practice, you know, for 3 minutes a day. And they don't. And then something happens. Well, it didn't work. Well, have you tried it before? Well, no. You know, you've got to practice it and know what it feels like. Because honestly, slowing your breath down, getting that air down around your belly button, that takes a lot of focus.
Yeah, it does. You know what's funny about is you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, isn't that just kind of who we've become? Instant gratification. We don't want to do the work. We just want to go. We want to go right from the start to the end. Where's the payoff? Give me the payoff. And we don't want to do any of the work in between to get to the payoff.
Well, certainly society has supported that with social media, and I mean, we get everything instantly now. The whole time the pandemic was going on, we had news flooding us 24/7. Way too much of it.
You know, I'm looking right now, Leigh Richardson, at what's going on in our world, and we have, as you know, we have a lot of inflation going on. Economically, there's a lot of stressors out there for people. I'm guessing that this is going to be, maybe this Christmas is going to be a little trying. It's difficult to get your hands on certain gifts that you may be trying to buy. What are some of the coping mechanisms you can give all of us during the holiday season to make it a little bit easier time? I mean, Thanksgiving's about a week away at this point.
Well, I think what we all have to do is set realistic expectations. And instead of, we all go to grandeur and we've got to have the latest and the greatest, focus on what do you really need? Not what you want, but what do you really need? This is a different Christmas. It is a different Thanksgiving. 4.4 million people quit their job in September. Before that it was 4.3. We're in a different state. So focus on expectations that are realistic. And when we really stop and think about what we really need, as opposed to what we want, there's a huge difference. And when we can stop and just say, I'm grateful, I'm thankful that I get to be with my family this year. Last year, I didn't get to be with my family. So what are you grateful for? What are you thankful for? Research shows that every day we have 3 times more positive events in our life than negative. What does the brain hold on to? The negative. The one negative. The brain's job is survival, man. It's got to keep us alive. On the right hemisphere, 2/3 of those cells are scanning for danger all the time. So we've really got to work hard and look for the positive. And it's out there. There are 3 times more good in your day than there are bad. You've just got to stop and capture it and be grateful for it.
Okay, in the mortal words of Mick Jagger, you can't always get what you want, but you find sometimes you get what you need. Okay, I like it. Leigh, good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you before then.
Thank you.
Take care. Leigh Richardson joining us here on AM 950 KPRC.